It's quite strange standing up here and looking at BETT from this angle. My name's Emma Asprey. I teach on the PGCE course at Bath Spa University, and I just want to talk to you a little bit about a couple of ways that we've been using Google and how we've introduced it to our trainee teachers and how we're using it, and what the impact is looking like at the moment. And I think I picked the wrong title for this on the blurb here, because it's not necessarily about trainee teachers using Google Drive. I think you could do exactly what we've done in schools as well. So hopefully there'll be some ideas for people along those lines as well. So the whole university went Google about 2.5 years ago, which was fantastic. I'd done quite a lot of work with Google before, so I was really excited to have all those tools available to me, and it was obvious to me that we should use them with our PGC students. And we kind of did a little pilot last year, and then from September 2013, we introduced it to all of our nearly 600 PGC students. So they all have this portfolio that they have to create. And previously that was a giant paper folder that grew and grew and grew, and it has all the evidence of their professional development in it. And we've replaced that now with a Google Drive folder, which gets shared with the tutor and with their mentors in school. The whole course is a very ICT-rich course, and we want to show them how to use ICT right across the curriculum, but also in various ways as a learning tool, really. And we feel that introducing them to the Google folders and sharing and collaborating online is a big part of that. And if we model it in their training, hopefully they'll go on and use that when they're teaching in schools as well. So previously, we had these huge paper portfolios that they would build up during the year. And obviously they really did become unmanageably enormous and full of evidence of the progress that they're making on the course and on their journey to becoming a teacher. It was really hard for them, though, to pick out bits of evidence because the folders got massive. And it was really hard for us as tutors to keep an eye on those folders, those portfolios, because they spend more than half the year out in school, so it's really difficult to keep track of them when they're not with us. And it was hard for the students to take responsibility for their own learning, and that's a really big part of what we're trying to train them to do in order to be teachers. So it ended up really being more of a summative thing at the end of the course, saying, look, here's all the evidence of my development, rather than helping them as they went through in a more formative way. Okay, so this is what the students would have at the beginning of their second placement in school. That's what they'd be looking at carrying into school with them every day. So, and that's before they'd done their final placement. It would get a lot bigger, probably another lever arch file by the end. So now all they need to bring in is an iPad or a laptop with them, and that's working really well. So what we did was we got each student to create their own folder in Google, and we told them exactly how they had to set it up with a list of subfolders and sections and things, so we'd know where to find things. And they had to share that with their tutor. Each tutor's got 20 PGC students, and then as soon as they go on a placement in school, they get their mentor's email address and they share it with their mentor as well. And it means that all of us can keep in touch all the time to help monitor the students' progress as they go through. So we told them they had to set up this particular set of folders. When we piloted it, I wasn't quite so prescriptive about this, but then I realised it was quite hard to find where they were squirreling all this evidence away, and so I thought we had to be a bit more bossy and make sure that they all use the same kind of structure. And we've used it in various ways. One of the big things that the students do is that they produce a weekly review. Here's one. So every week they're reviewing what's going on, and we're really trying to encourage them not to just describe what they see, but to explain it and to reflect on it and analyse it, so that they are building up their understanding of what teaching and learning is all about. So they write this weekly review. And even when they're out in school and I'm not seeing them as regularly, I can drop in little comments for them to encourage them to be more reflective and less descriptive. So it makes it easier for me to keep up with each individual student's progress. And hopefully it really helps them to continue that learning while they're in school as well. As obviously they're learning lots of practical stuff when they're in school, and what we want them to do is to connect it with a lot of the theory that we've been teaching them about at the university. So often my comments are about that, about encouraging them to do that. So using those dropping in comments as a kind of bit of formative feedback and assessment has worked really well. And other ways that we've used it are when the students are making a claim and saying, oh, I've reached this level now, and presenting that and showing us the evidence. Previously, again, that was done on paper, and they would have to scrabble through those enormous files to find the right piece of evidence to prove that they'd met this particular criteria, assessment criteria. Now, what we're encouraging them to do is to do it in a Google Doc and upload the most pertinent pieces of evidence into their folder, and then just put a link to it. So this student has written lots and lots about why she's at a particular level, just to prove it to me, and she's listed these pieces of evidence, and there are links up there, and in the text as well. When I want to see a piece of evidence, I can just click on that, and it'll link straight to it. So I can do that. She doesn't have to be in the office with me. We can do this remotely, that's fine. And I can really easily see all those pieces of evidence. So it's saving a trip into the university. It's meaning she doesn't have to hoik these big files around with her as well. It's much neater, much easier for us tutors and for the students as well. So we asked the students what they thought about using Google Drive after we'd done the pilot, and we'll do this again this year. And it was quite interesting what came out, actually. They are extremely enthusiastic, it has to be said. They have kind of moved over to using Google for quite a lot of their work now. So particularly you can see here that they really like that linking of the evidence, that they're connecting their learning with the evidence that they've got. They like the fact that they can access it wherever they are. So as long as they can get some internet access in school, which they can, then they've got it with them without having to carry stuff around. They know that the tutors can see all these weekly reviews straight away. As soon as they're written, they're live. In fact, a couple of times I've logged in to check up on my students, and I can see they're actually in the act of writing them. So, I usually back off at that point. I don't start leaving them comments because I think that would sort of freak them out. I'll let them finish writing it, and then I'll get stuck in. And then the teachers, the mentors in school, are able to write on there as well. So it really feels much more of a collaborative little triangle between all of us, supporting them as they make their progress. There's a few other bits that they've said there as well. In particular, they feel like it saves time. And they found it really helpful sharing documents between themselves as well. So outside of this folder structure, when they find really useful resources that they're using in school, they'll tend to share it via Google as well. It's helping them to be very efficient and organised, which clearly they're going to need to be when they get into school. So we're giving them a tool to do that as well. We asked some of the teachers, the mentors who are supporting them in the classroom, how they found it as well, because we did find that to be a bit of a stumbling block. We know that we've all got our Google accounts at the university, so it's really easy to share things between the students and the tutors, but when they go out into hundreds of different schools, there are all sorts of systems going on out there. Most of the schools aren't using Google yet, but hopefully they'll move in that direction. So it has been, I've had to do a little bit of troubleshooting, and hopefully the students can support the mentors with helping them access their folders. But we have had some really fantastic feedback from mentors, and I know when we ask this year, we'll get some more again. They love that instant access. And they really like the way that it's easier to complete the forms together, or if they want to do a bit at home or at another time, they can. They don't necessarily have to be sat at a desk handwriting a form, which is what they've tended to do in the past. And they found it really great to have access to all of that evidence in that folder at any time as well, rather than having to ask the student for the paper folder, and it was much easier for them. So overall, we found this to be a very positive experience. Obviously, we kind of trialled it with a small group last year, and then I was given permission to lead this and roll it out for 600 students this year. So we were fairly convinced about it. A lot of these positives are fairly practical, and what I'm getting more interested in now really is what impact it actually has on the learning and the teaching. Clearly, it's really easy and quick, and everybody can access this, which is fantastic. And you've got the options of either working on things synchronously or asynchronously, and that's lovely to give everybody a bit more flexibility. The mentors, if they're part-time, they find it fantastic. If there's a job share going on, it's much more easy to communicate and keep track of what's happening with their students. Quite a few, and it hadn't occurred to me, but this is so much cheaper for the students, because previously they were printing out reams and reams of paper, so they're really grateful on that front as well, because they have a lot of expenses, travel expenses and stuff as well. They find it really quick to organise. And I think the business with assessment of kind of connecting it all together, it really helps the students assess their own progress and take responsibility for that. And that's hopefully going to lead them into being reflective teachers who are responsible for their professional development and able to look for those opportunities and organise themselves in that way as well. And certainly the students really appreciate the extra contact with the tutor. They felt like they were much more in touch with us. And it's certainly fantastic from the tutor's point of view, being able to see it all. So we did have a few little issues. I think we've solved most of them now. And the majority of them, I've found, are the kind of human side of it rather than technical issues, although there are a couple of little issues sometimes with filtering in school. But sometimes the students and the mentors, weren't so confident about working in this way, and so they needed a little bit of support. It was interesting this year when I initially sort of told the 600 students about it. We ran a series of just very quick 10-minute lectures for them. And I showed them very quickly how to set up the folders and stuff. And then about a week later, we said, well, if you've had any problems, we're going to do these drop-in sessions and you can come along. And I was expecting, a fair number to come along, because not many of them had used Google before. And in fact, only 10 students turned up. And the confidence of the students themselves is fantastic. And they haven't had too many problems in that respect. They've managed it pretty well. Yeah, so there's some kind of minor issues, but we're certainly getting around them. And we've learned quite a lot, and we're continuing to learn quite a lot about this, about how we offer training. One thing we found really helpful is for us at the university to move as much as we can to doing all our documentation through Google and sharing it and working it in that way. And I think that has lots of very positive implications, not least of which is that it really forces you to simplify your documents. And I think that's, we certainly, maybe other universities aren't the same, but we've got a lot of very complex tables and documents that have evolved over years and years, and it's lovely to sort of start afresh a little bit and make sure that everything's really clear. And of course, we're modelling the use of Google to the students all the time, and that helps it to take off and become much more embedded in what we're all doing. So yeah, we're kind of moving from the practical benefits to thinking much more about the pedagogical benefits and how it actually might transform the learning process for our PGCE students. And I think it could do this in school as well. But it really is working. And what we're finding is that our students' written work is beginning to show signs of being more reflective. And we're working more and more on that, and we're learning as tutors what kinds of feedback we can give them and comments that we can put on those documents that will really help them and support them in becoming more reflective and like I was saying, taking more responsibility then for their own development and tracking their own progress. And I think so it makes their learning process more of an ongoing conversation rather than in kind of stilted chunks, which I think is perhaps, looking back on it, is how it was before. And hopefully that would work just as well in schools as it is in universities. And I'm happy to talk to anybody who's interested in setting it up, either in schools or in universities. Not from a technical point of view so much, but how we've actually set it up and used it as teachers. That's it. So thanks very much.